Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with me.
And me.
Today we're going to be unpacking this article from the Motley Fool. It's called Investing in Pharma Stocks. Check these three things first.
Catchy title.
It was just published today, actually, November 22nd, 2024.
Oh, very fresh.
So hot off the presses, as they say.
Nice.
I know a lot of you out there are interested in investing in pharma stocks.
Yeah, who isn't?
For good reason, right? It's
Yeah.
a really interesting world.
Yeah, huge potential.
Exactly. So this article dives into three really important insights that honestly go way beyond just the typical financial metrics.
Right?
It really is like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain of how the industry actually works.
I like that.
So I'm excited to jump in.
This is going to be good.
All right, so they start off with something that seems pretty basic.
Oh, yeah.
Capital allocation plans, but honestly, it's something that a lot of people just kind of skip over.
Yeah, and I think what's really insightful about this article is that it focuses on, you, the investor,
Right.
understanding, the business decisions behind the performance.
Yeah.
It's not just about the numbers.
Absolutely.
It's about the strategy behind those numbers.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes so much deeper than just how much money they're putting into research and development.
Right. Although that is obviously important.
Yeah, of course. That's a big one.
Yeah. They use Eli Lilly as an example.
Okay.
Dropped a cool $10.5 billion on R&D last year.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's over 25% of their total revenue.
That's a serious commitment.
It is.
To research.
Yeah, so what's interesting there is that they're heavily focused on developing, entirely new drugs.
Okay.
Rather than just tweaking existing ones.
So it's not just iterating on something that's already there.
Exactly.
They're trying to break new ground.
High risk, high reward strategy.
I see.
Takes a lot of capital up front.
Mm-hmm.
But if they hit a home run with a new blockbuster drug,
yeah,
the payoff can be enormous.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not even just about the amount of money they're putting into the R&D.
Right.
It's what kind of research they're doing.
Yeah, what are they focused on?
Exactly. That tells you a lot about
their overall strategy.
their risk tolerance. Are they playing it safe, or are they really
swinging for the fences?
Swinging for the fences, exactly. But capital allocation obviously goes beyond R&D.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You have to look at the whole picture.
Okay.
Are they acquiring other companies?
Mm-hmm.
Investing in new manufacturing facilities? Are they paying down debt?
Right.
Buying back shares?
Yeah.
All these decisions tell a story about what their priorities are.
Okay, so for someone like me who's looking at a pharma company and trying to figure out, is this a good investment or not?
Yeah.
What should I be looking for in their capital allocation plan?
Well, one thing to consider is their debt levels.
Okay.
High debt can be a red flag.
Especially if they're not paying it down.
Especially if they're prioritizing shareholder payouts, dividends and buybacks.
Right, so it's they're trying to make investors happy in the short term.
Right, exactly.
But they might not be.
Investing enough in future growth.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because it's so easy to just focus on those shareholder payouts.
Yeah.
Because those seem like immediate benefits.
It's money in your pocket.
Right. But you got to look at, are they sacrificing long-term growth?
Exactly.
For those short-term gains?
Are they mortgaging the future to pay for the present?
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm really starting to see how just analyzing that capital allocation can reveal a lot.
Yeah.
About a company's health and their vision.
Exactly. And it ties directly into the next key insight from the article, which is all about identifying those potential blockbuster drugs.
Ooh, now this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to invest in the next big pharmaceutical breakthrough, right?
Right. It's super exciting.
Yeah.
But it's also complex. So let's unpack what makes a drug a potential blockbuster.
Yeah.
It's not just about the therapeutic benefit,
Right.
It's also about market size.
Right.
Pricing potential.
Yeah.
Competitive landscape.
So it's got to be something that addresses a huge unmet medical need.
Exactly.
People really need this.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of other options out there.
Right. So it can command a high price because there are few or no alternatives.
Right. So you're not competing.
Exactly. With 10 other drugs that do the same thing.
Exactly. And the article gives a great example.
Okay.
Amgen's weight loss drug, Maritide.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, we're talking about a potential market size of $100 billion by 2030.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That is huge.
Yeah. So,
But, okay, so even with a market that big, how can we as investors even try to identify those blockbusters before they've even hit the market?
Yeah.
Like, how do you even know?
It's all about doing your research.
Okay.
Digging into the company's pipeline.
Looking for drugs in, like, late-stage clinical trials.
Okay.
Pay attention to, like, analyst reports and industry news.
So you're not just like looking at the company's website.
No. You got to go deeper. You got to read between the lines.
Yeah, you got to do some real digging.
Yeah, and really understand the science and the market potential behind these drugs.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to like an important contrast, I think.
Okay.
You know, we were just talking about like Amgen, this big pharma company, hunting for these like billion-dollar blockbusters.
Yeah.
But there are also all these smaller biotech companies that are maybe focusing on developing like niche medicines.
Yeah, for specific patient populations.
So is one approach like inherently better than the other?
That's a good question. It really depends on the company's size, their resources, and their risk tolerance.
Okay.
So for a smaller biotech firm focusing on a niche market can be a smart move. They can develop deep expertise in that area. Yeah. And potentially achieve really high profit margins. But for a large pharmaceutical company, those niche drugs might not be enough to like really move the needle.
Interesting.
Yeah, they need those like blockbuster wins to justify their huge R&D budgets and all their global operations and stuff.
So as investors, we got to consider like the company's strategy.
Yeah.
And whether that aligns with their like size and goals.
Exactly.
Okay, but even with those blockbuster drugs, right?
Right.
There's a ticking clock that we got to be aware of.
The dreaded patent cliff.
Yeah, because eventually those patents expire.
Right.
And then all the generic competition comes in.
Exactly.
And then that drives the prices down and it eats into their profits.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Man, this is making me realize like how important it is to understand like the patent landscape when you're investing in pharma stocks.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just look at the company's like current blockbusters.
Right.
You got to know when those patents are expiring and what the company's plan is.
Yeah, like how are they going
to replace that revenue?
Fill that gap.
Yeah.
Are there any strategies that they can use to like mitigate the impact of the patent cliff, or is it just kind of like an inevitability?
Yeah. Well, there are a few things they can do.
Okay.
They can try to extend patent protection.
Okay.
Through various like legal strategies. They can develop like new formulations or combinations of existing drugs to try to get new patents.
I see.
Or they can focus on, developing new blockbuster drugs
to
replace the ones that are going off patent.
To replace the ones that are going off? Okay.
But even with those strategies,
the
patent cliff is a pretty significant risk factor.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
And like something that we need to definitely factor into like
absolutely
our analysis.
Yeah, look at their patent portfolio, see when key patents are expiring, and assess their pipeline and their strategy for replacing that lost revenue.
Man, I'm starting to see this like clear connection between all three of these insights. Like you've got your capital allocation, which influences their ability to invest in R&D, which then leads to, maybe developing blockbuster drugs. But then those blockbusters eventually face that patent cliff.
Yep, it's all interconnected.
All interconnected, yeah.
It highlights the importance of like taking a holistic view. When analyzing these companies.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've talked about capital allocation plans, identifying potential blockbuster drugs in the pipeline, and being aware of the looming patent cliff.
That's right.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And that's what we'll be diving into in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
We'll be right back. Welcome back.
All right, so
before the break, we were just discussing that patent cliff. And how it impacts pharma companies. But there's another layer to this.
Oh, okay, like those onion commercials.
Exactly.
But there's always like another layer.
Always another layer.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What else should we be thinking about?
The rise of biosimilars.
Okay, I've heard of biosimilars.
Yeah.
But I don't fully understand like how they fit into all of this.
Right.
Can you break that down for me?
Sure. So biosimilars are essentially the generic versions of these complex biologic drugs.
Which are often those blockbuster drugs we were just talking about?
Often the very same ones.
Okay.
Yeah, so biologic drugs are different from like traditional chemically synthesized drugs. They're made from living organisms.
Okay.
which makes them much more complex to manufacture.
So that's why they're so expensive.
That's part of it, yeah.
Okay.
But as patents on these blockbuster biologics expire, other companies can step in and develop biosimilars, which are these highly similar versions of the original drug.
So it's like having a generic version of a blockbuster biologic.
Yeah.
Okay. But if they're so similar, why does it even matter?
Right.
Like, don't doctors and patients just stick with what they know?
Biosimilars are typically priced lower than the original biologics.
Makes sense.
Which makes them really attractive
to
insurers and healthcare systems.
Of course.
And while they're not exact replicas, they have to meet these strict regulatory standards to demonstrate that they are similar in terms of their safety and efficacy.
So they can't just be like some knockoff version. They have to actually prove that they're...
You have to go through a rigorous approval process to show that they're essentially the same.
Wow. Okay, so even if a company has like a new blockbuster drug that's ready to replace an older one that's going off patent, they might still face competition from these biosimilars, which could like further erode their revenue.
Exactly. It adds a whole new dimension of competition to the market.
So how should we be factoring biosimilars into our investment analysis?
That's a great question.
Like, what kind of questions should we be asking?
Well, first, look at the company's portfolio.
Okay.
Are any of their key drugs facing biosimilar competition soon?
Okay.
Like in the near future? If so, how are they planning to address that?
Right.
Are they developing new and improved versions of their drugs?
Okay.
Are they diversifying their portfolio?
Interesting.
These are all things to consider.
Yeah, it sounds like understanding the biosimilar landscape is like crucial.
It is.
For making good investment decisions.
Absolutely. And it really reinforces the interconnectedness of these three key insights from the article. You know, capital allocation decisions can influence a company's ability to invest in new drug development or acquisitions to stay ahead of that biosimilar competition.
Okay, so let's recap what we've learned so far.
Okay.
We need to carefully examine a company's capital allocation plan. To see how they're investing for the future, we need to identify those potential blockbuster drugs in their pipeline. Recognizing that even those blockbusters are eventually going to face that patent cliff.
The clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And now we've added this like crucial layer of understanding biosimilars and how they impact the market.
The competitive landscape.
Wow. This is giving me a much deeper appreciation for the complexity of the pharmaceutical industry.
It is complex.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not.
But for those willing to do the research, seems like there's a lot of opportunity.
A lot of opportunity.
Okay, so anything else we should be thinking about as we wrap up our deep dive?
Well, one thing I'd add is...
This has been like a really fascinating discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground capital allocation, blockbuster drugs, the patent cliff,
biosimilars?
Even biosimilars, right. But before we wrap things up, is there anything else you think is, like, essential?
Let me think.
For understanding the dynamics of this industry.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
While we've focused on, like, the companies themselves, it's really crucial to remember those, like, external forces at play.
Okay.
The regulatory landscape, for example, can make or break a pharma company.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I can imagine, like, the FDA approval process...
A huge hurdle.
...is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's not just about getting approval either.
Right.
It's about pricing negotiations with government agencies and insurance companies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the political climate can play a big role, too.
Of course, especially with, like, drug pricing and, you know, healthcare reform.
Exactly. All that stuff.
So even if a company has, like, the most amazing drug in the world... That's going to, like, revolutionize healthcare.
It's not a guaranteed success.
They still have to navigate all of this.
All that red tape.
Yeah, all that red tape and this political pressures.
Yeah, it adds another layer of risk.
Yeah, for sure.
And uncertainty.
For investors to think about.
For sure.
Wow, okay, so it sounds like we really got to stay informed about industry trends and, like, regulatory changes.
Absolutely.
And the political landscape.
Stay up to date on all that stuff.
Man, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to all the moving pieces in this industry.
It's a lot.
It's not just about science.
It's about the business.
It's about the business and the regulations.
And the market forces.
Wow.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
I know. I'm starting to see that,
There's always something new to learn. And as investors, you know, it's our responsibility to do that due diligence. And make informed decisions.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up,
okay,
I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
All right. I like it.
How can you use all this knowledge to make smarter investment decisions?
Good question.
What companies are you going to research further? What other factors might you consider based on our conversation today?
Yeah, this deep dive has just scratched the surface.
Yeah, for sure.
The pharmaceutical world is vast.
It is.
Constantly evolving. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring.
And hey, if there's a specific company or drug you want us to take a deep dive into, let us know.
Hit us up.
We're always up for a challenge. Until next time, happy investing.